Our guest this evening is Nancy Redstar. Her website is www.nancyredstar.com. Her book is called Star Ancestors, and I highly recommend the book. And I would like to welcome Nancy to the show this evening. Nancy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And what part of the country are you living in? Is it New Mexico?
Northern New Mexico, and your music is lovely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
I didn't know you were a musician.
Yeah, one of my vocations, I guess. Do you experience winter where you live?
Oh yeah. We're about 8,500 feet above sea level, up to 13,000 at the top of the mountain. So it gets quite chilly here, but we've had a warm kind of yesterday and today.
Great. That sounds good. In the preface of your book, you talk about your name, Red Star, and you say that a red star is not a star at all, but a planet. And you call yourself a runner. In the book, you say that you run between generations, cultures, and worlds with the message of the star ancestors. Can you elaborate on the red star concept and tell us what it means to be a runner?
Well, my family name is Redman. My husband's family was Red Star, and so I kept that name after we split up. But because I was already known for my work under that name, so it just so happens that there is a Red Star prophecy, and it has to do with what we're moving into now, and the return of what the Hopi call a purifier. So many people talk about the blue star, but there is also a red star, which they in the interview that I heard from two Hopi elders, they talked about the purifier returning to purify, which is what we're coming up on now, and that purifier has the high technology. So it should be interesting to see what they're talking about. In terms of my work, a runner is somebody who collects information and runs from elder to elder from many indigenous people, but primarily that term is used within the American Indian community as somebody who is a runner for the elders. But that term I'm probably losing somewhat of because I've aged since then. It's been 12 years since I wrote that book, so I've become an elder. I'm in my 60s, so that's why I'm editing the film and really trying to get that out this year, because it's kind of the culmination of the message that I got from elders. And elders sometimes are not just old. You can have elders that are young people too, who have certain information. So that's what a runner does. A runner collects and tries to retain some of the information. I didn't exactly know what I was doing when I started. I didn't know the depth and the complexity of the information. I just knew that I had to do it, and I had been involved in a project that was a UFO music event, a huge one in Roswell, and we lost our sponsors after Heaven's Gate, that mass suicide.
Right.
Well, they called it a suicide. It really looks to me like it was a black op. But when that happened, we had great sponsors. We had huge sponsors. We had Pepsi and Frito-Lay and great marketing team and great producers. But the sponsors didn't want to back the event after that happened because they were afraid that somebody would take that recipe over there in Roswell. So I just went on to collect the information because I had started to be really fascinated by it. I wasn't a UFO enthusiast before that necessarily. I mean, I was teaching. I was in the academic world. You know, I was teaching at Bard College back east, and I was teaching American Indian Society through the history department. So I wasn't, you know, I was dealing with just an academic life. I was there for a couple of years. So, and this opportunity came up, and it seemed the right time, the right place. So I went for it, and as a result, I was able to get, you know, the books published, which isn't that easy, particularly about UFO information, you know. I mean, with a serious publisher, I had Random House at first, but they wouldn't publish the artwork that's in the book, so I declined to finish it with them, and I went on to have it published through Inner Traditions up in Rochester, Vermont.
Our history with extraterrestrial life, or as an elder stated in your book, ultra-terrestrial life, is very important right now. And you say in the book that spiritual wisdom keepers around the world have recognized signs associated with ancient prophecies. And these signs have told the timekeepers that they must speak their sacred knowledge about our origins from the stars. Nancy, can you tell us more about our origin from the stars?
Well, I mean, I can. When you say "our," that they're speaking of their origin from the stars, because I believe, from what my understanding is, after interviewing some calendarists, some Mayan calendarists, that different races have different stars of origination, and as Salaji people or Cherokee people, we are aligned with the Pleiades, like many of the American Indian tribes and also the Mayans as well. And so that is, we believe, the Milky Way, the Pleiades, our star of origination. But I believe, and I would have to continue to go out and talk to, even though I did talk to, for instance, Aboriginal people in Australia who said that they have I was asked to document 7 Aboriginal women that were walking for 7 months, and they were all in their 70s, to release the information from the Pleiades. But I had a woman named Jingaloo in my second book, Legends of the Star Ancestors, say that the Aboriginal people believe that they are from Sirius. And so I think that there's a different origination. And I can't say much more about it than that, because it would have to be researched more. You know, it came up in the book from various people who knew that information and had the oral teachings or memories from that. So, but that is very much comes through the culture in many ways, in the rituals and the ceremonies. For instance, I know Clifford Mahuti, that I was on the History Channel with, is from the Milky Way galaxy clan. And so, you know, there are similarities, but you'd have to go around. These aren't things that are necessarily written. You'd have to go talk to elders, and a lot of the elders are gone now. A lot of the elders that, you know, I interviewed have passed on, because a lot of them were in their late 80s, and you know, some were young, some elders were younger, but a lot of them are gone. So if that wasn't passed on, it's sometimes very hard to find in this modern world.
The Hopis say that the world that we are in is called the fifth world. The creation and destruction of the 4 previous worlds is held as common knowledge, among the Mayans and the Tibetans and the North American Indians, the Egyptians and other cultures. You say in the book that on 4 previous worlds and 4 previous continents, that humans had technology of a very high order, and now here we are in the 5th world. And
well, we've been emerging. That's part of this transition we're in. We're emerging into the 5th world. We haven't completely arrived yet. And many people looked at that Mayan calendar, 2012, but there's 4 more calendars that when I interviewed the calendarists from Guatemala, they said they couldn't speak of them because they were too sacred to be spoken of at that time. Now, that was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So probably some of them have been spoken on, have been given to the world, but we still have 4 more calendars to go through before this is completed. So it's nowhere near over. But of course, they've been pushing through the mainstream media and through mass media and through some of the technologies, this trying to bring in the Armageddon or a biblical Armageddon. They've been pushing it earlier than it's coming. And the fear based around that is what keeps people afraid, paralyzed,
right,
to look into the future, because we still have quite a few years here to go through this. That is my understanding.
Now, we have experienced the Gulf oil spill and the Fukushima nuclear disaster, and these are examples of the abuse of technology, and you talk about the abuse of technology in the book. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Well, it's just like I'm saying, through the HARP program, they're trying to manifest a biblical Armageddon or, doomsday, because that's one way of, they know a lot of people are plugged into the Bible, and so by pushing this the world is coming to an end, it gives them more control than if they were to say, oh, hey, we are actually living in the times of light now. We have moved out of those 9 hells, those 9 darknesses. We are living in the 13, according to the Guatemalan Maya that I interviewed. We are living in the 13 heavens, the 13 ages of light now. And that's why that light is shining through the structures that have formed our reality, and as they're shattering in front of our eyes. And so it's very hard to get a grip on things because it's happening so fast and it's literally shattering. But we really need to be building our next world now. So we need to be gathering, and to be building the next world. We're talking about the 5th world. We've, where the 4th world ends and the 5th world begins, but that is part of what the Maya call the 5th fire. And I believe we've entered into that, but it is a process. Nothing happens overnight. As far as the technology, yes, the technology that they Hopi talk about, the 2-hearted people that don't have their heads connected to the rest of their body. When they talk about their power, it is entwined in the defense systems, the military-industrial complex. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about the weapons of mass destruction, the weapons of war. What we're seeing happening in Africa, those are the weapons. And those weapons are way beyond what we think they are. They're much more advanced, even here on Earth, than what most people realize, because they have plasma, they have weapons using mirrors where they can direct electromagnetic pulses and frequencies and technologies that can just burn up an area, completely burn it up. And so that's those are the weapons, and that really has a lot to do with why I even got involved in this book, because it is a nuclear issue. If it's true, in fact, that governments were contacted after 1947 by extraterrestrial races, the primary concern has always been nuclear weapons. And that is, it's not about abductions, it's not about mutilations. Those are all done by the United States government. They don't need to do that kind of thing. The reason, the ones that I have understood, that their concern was for the governments of the world about the nuclear and atomic bomb. And here we are, we're looking at radioactive debris that is off the coast of California that's the size of California, and we have animals, seals up in Alaska dying right now from radioactive water. So we have a very, very real problem, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with Syria and Israel and Iran. I believe it's in the Hopi prophecy that there will be a third great shaking, meaning the Third World War will go nuclear. It could be localized nuclear, but we're there. And at the same time, we're in this age of light, and there are many people that are regaining abilities and have understandings that they didn't have before.
You said that the two-hearted people, that I think you said that their heads are not connected to their heart. Was it the Mayans that described us that way?
No, it's drawn on a rock at Oribe. Their heads are not connected to their bodies.
Really?
And they actually, on the rock, and this is the prophecy rock, they actually go off to oblivion, meaning now we're going to see the increase in their behavior and their actions in terms of war, because war is necessary for their profitability. And we'll see it continue, but we're also going to see their downfall within these next years. It's inevitable. I believe it's written that this will happen. And again, we're going to move into another world, and I don't believe that it'll be like the one we're in now, be based on on human principles.
And at the beginning of the show, you talked about the purifier. Can you tell us more about what needs to be purified and who or what is the purifier?
Well, I couldn't say much more than that, because I'm not privy to the inner circle of that knowledge, but I only know what was given to me. And it was given to me from one of the people who worked with the Hopi, and it's a diagram. It's on a piece of fabric. And the purifier, these two, I would encourage anybody to go back through Art Bell's archives around the year 2000 or 1999. He did an interview with two Hopi elders who spoke. One was a translator and the other spoke only Hopi. And they talked about the purifier, and they said the purifier has the high technology, meaning above our technology. And that is written, that is what he said. And that's all he said. And so I believe him, and leave it at that there are other worlds out there, and there are other universes, and there are other communities of beings that are more highly evolved than we are. I mean, that's pretty obvious. If you look at what's going on here, in the evolution of humankind, we have to make this leap away from war in order to evolve.
Right.
It's not just a cycle, It's an actual evolution. And, many people say, well, people have been warring and killing each other forever and ever and ever. But this frequency that's supposed to come here has never been on this planet before. It's a different frequency, a higher frequency. So I guess it's my belief and my wish and my part of my dream track is that we can make that change in our evolution away from violence and war.
You mentioned Harriet Goodluck from the Navajo Nation in New Mexico. Can you tell us her?
Well, she was the first person I interviewed, and she's a very traditional woman, and had very strong feelings about what was going on in the world with the violence, with the domestic violence. As a matter of fact, that's what she said, is the whole world is in a domestic violence situation. But one of the things she was interpreting for me, because there's certain things in the old traditional way that you just can't pass through the wires. You're not supposed to. For instance, a woman I served here on Taos Pueblo, who was 104, she lived up in the Pueblo. It's on tiers, and she lived way up at the top. She had to go up a ladder to get up there at 104, and she had no running water, no electricity, and no wires. And she was holding on to the old law about not passing anything through the wires. And so I had heard through a gentleman from Santa Clara Pueblo about an incident that took place up near Big Mountain, where a woman, Irene Yazzie, had an experience with some of the deities coming to her and giving her instructions and warnings. And so I went up there to talk to Harriet so she could interpret it because it wasn't supposed to be passed on in writing. It was very private. There were a lot of medicine people that came from all over the country, and it was supposed to stay within at that time, that information. And so when I interviewed her, it was a while afterwards, she was able to tell me, and it's in the book, what that experience was, what happened with that woman, and what it meant to her people, to the Dene, and also to the world. And so that was very profound that she actually could interpret it for me. And I wrote everything by longhand at that time. I didn't use a computer for my books. I wasn't on the computer, so I didn't want to pass that through the wires. And that was the process, probably why that book is so... There's very little unauthentic, in there. I mean, the interviews themselves are very, very profound, very rich, and
they certainly are, very much.
I was amazed. Yeah, I had no idea what I was in for, what I was doing, really.
It's an awesome book.
It really is.
It stirs your imagination a lot.
It does. A lot of people put it near their bed, and they have, transmissions from it. There's a lot of power in there. I'm very happy that they are in 2012. They're reprinting it. It's run out, so they're going to do another run, which is good. I'm very happy about that, and I'm hoping that the film will encapsulate, because a lot of people don't read anymore. It's one of the unfortunate things about the time we're in. People just are not reading.
So you're making a film based on the book, correct?
Oh yeah, I've already pretty much finished it. I've got one more shoot I hope to do with Clifford Mahuti and some of the people up on Rosebud and Pine Ridge, and I'm hoping to do that in the spring. But other than that, yes, I have, and I just got an editor with Reels TV who is working with me, so I think I'm ready to edit it. I probably would have messed it up if I had done it before. It takes time to really understand. This subject is very sensitive.
it has to be a good movie. If it's based on this book, it just has to be a good movie.
Yeah, it's been very hard to finish it. I don't know if everything is timing and luck, and then I went through periods where I was able to raise the money to keep going, but just for the end part is where it's really hard now to get that money. To get any financial support to edit it is difficult.
One of the things you've mentioned before is that you say that modernization of the world has spoiled everything, and I couldn't agree more. There's an old Joni Mitchell song that says they paved paradise and put up a parking lot, and I wondered if you could comment on that a bit.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with growing and creating a better world, but that's not what we're doing. We have a death cult in charge, and unfortunately what we're seeing is millions of people dying, and that's pretty much part of the what's at hand. I'm not as yes, I am concerned with technology. I'm also concerned with the eugenics movement and the depopulation and the culling of society, and that's what we're witnessing. And it's very sad. It's very painful to see what we have to see if people are willing to look at it. I find a lot of people are not wanting to see it. I mean, a lot of people are just coping on a day-to-day level, trying to just get through. But we have to witness the truth so that we can bring forth something better. So it doesn't work to be a zombie. It doesn't work to be numb to it. I mean, that's what's good about being an investigative writer, is that you're always looking around to try to find out what's really going on. And I make a very, I make a lifestyle out of that, and trying to report it on my YouTube channel. Try to let people know. For instance, Obama just signed the NDAA bill today from Honolulu, and there goes our Bill of Rights. And people have to be aware of what's happening in order for us to change it. And I think it's the same thing when you're attempting to document and capture prophecy fulfilled or unfulfilled from the people who are involved with that. And when you look at the American Indian culture, or even the culture down in Central America, you're going to get teachings. It's like Clifford Mahuti said on History Channel when we were on Ancient Aliens. The star ancestors brought us the rituals and brought us the ceremonies, brought us the warnings and brought us the teachings. And they're written on the rocks. They're left in monolithic sites. I mean, there's technology, ancient technology all over this planet that is still standing that shows about our star ancestry, also shows about a higher technology, electromagnetic propulsion systems, which is part of the mechanism that keeps a craft, whether it be a back-engineered extraterrestrial vehicle from this planet or from another planet, works on zero gravity. So yes, we're stuck in an oil for war syndrome, being run by a death cult, and yet we have all of this other great things that we could be doing, and we have to get through this mire. We have to speak out. We have to take a stand. We just can't sit back on our laurels and let it all happen. We have to speak out and seek the truth. And so, I'm just like everybody else who's trying to find the right way through this, the way that is going to be best for all of us. And I don't think we can do it alone. I mean, we're going to have to do it in communities, because if everything changes, if we lose our electricity, like the Hunbatsman was saying in that interview, that they call them the Maksuls. The Mayans call the extraterrestrials Maksul. And they say that the Maksul can see 30,000 years in advance of what's going to happen. And then he said, and yes, and they can also turn the electricity off all over this planet. And they can reverse nuclear energy. So, yes, they do have the abilities, but people have to wake up. But as many people that can wake up are going to wake up, and that's why this is a prolonged experience that we have to go through, the dark tale of this, so that people can wake up. You know, that's why it's lasting longer than we would like, is we're going to have to endure this, because it's going to continue and be worse than it has been so far in terms of weapons of mass destruction and crimes against humanity. You know?
There's a man named Dana Pictou, I think, from Nova Scotia, that is discussed in the book. And there's something called the talking rock. Can you tell us about that?
The little boys. Yeah, he talks about the little boys that are left. As a matter of fact, I found one on my way to the Navajo Res when I was doing my first interview, and I took a photograph of it. It's in the book, and it's a rock with two eyes, and then it has like a telepathic funnel on the top of his head. It's like a circle, like a spiral. And he talks about how rocks, well, you know, rocks are very important. They're people, and within the culture, the Indian culture, they are revered as people, and so these rocks, he's Micmac, Dana Pictou. He was cousins with Annie Mae Agwash from Wounded Knee. He talks about how they're left as special messages and gifts for certain people who are on a certain path, you know, and that's confirmation of their footing.
There's a section in the book that goes as follows. I was looking into the south at 2 or 3 in the morning. There were little people dropping from the sky in the distance. People would come out of the woods after they dropped from the sky, and the event lasts for 45 minutes. Is that something that you can talk about at all, Nancy?
Well, it didn't happen to me, so it's kind of hard for me to speak on his experience other than what he said. Mm-hmm. But he had that experience, and you hear a lot about, I mean, we used to be very taboo to talk about little people, certainly within the Solaji, you know, the Cherokee people, but these interdimensional beings, like Bigfoot, like little people, like what some people call angels, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're almost indistinguishable. They're becoming more and more apparent to people who are walking in a certain way. You know, it really depends which way you're walking as to what you see, what you experience. But many people are having profound experiences right now, either through their dreams or through their waking life, or, you know, because there's an upgrade, there's a genetic upgrade that's occurring within the DNA, and or an awakening. And some people call it melanin, which is an ability that makes certain races different than others. And I had a Cree elder tell me that when you talk about tribal people, the tribes of Europe are tribes too. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between the white elite race that's running things and the tribal people, the tribes of Europe, which are the white tribe. You know, you have tribes of different colors, and within the white tribe there is similar teachings too. Whether they're Celtic or Druid or where they come from, you know, they're part of the tribal people.
Exactly.
The tribes of Europe. Yeah.
There's a section in the book where it talks about someone looking through the scope of a gun at a large craft that had lights on the bottom moving around in a circle. Can you tell us about that?
Are you talking about Dana?
Is that Dana that saw that?
I can't remember offhand if you don't cite the actual chapter.
Okay, I think it was on page 22. It might have been Dana.
I think they were hunting. They were out.
Yeah,
they were out hunting up in Nova Scotia. You know, he's Micmac, and that was one of his first experiences that he never forgot for sure. And that was quite a few years ago. You know, that's got to be 40 years ago.
Wow.
So what's happening now is a lot of the technology, the stealth technology that people think they're seeing craft, they're not. They're government back-engineered technologies, and we have a lot of them. But the orbs, the whole phenomena of the orbs is completely non-governmental. And a lot of people are having those experiences. And I've talked to quite a few Indian people who have told me about their experiences with them, how they enter into the space-time continuum through that orb and how they leave and make contact. So that's not
very interesting.
Yeah, that's not necessarily in Star Ancestors, but I have interviewed people. As a matter of fact, quite a bit of that information has come up from South Dakota.
There's a section in the book that reads as follows. Yes, it's preparation time. Grandfather told us that we had to get away from the oceans and live in the mountains because the coastlines are going to be flooded. Do you still see that happening, Nancy?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do see that happening. They said go to the high ground. That's where I am. That's why I am where I am. I mean, I have a farm up here, a 4-acre fruit farm, and, you know, I'm there. It's not easy because, you know, you don't have the same access to certain things when you're up here. But again, we're also 8,500 feet above sea level, so the air is good.
Sure.
So they say keep your bedroll by the door and go to the high ground. I still believe that is very true. I wouldn't want to be right now, and especially coming this year in a major city. Where are you in Ohio?
Well, I'm pretty far out from the city personally here.
You are
about an hour. So. Yeah, I agree with you. You know, there's also a lady in the book, I think her name is Mally Keating, and I think she's from Vermont, and she talks about monolithic stone structures throughout New England. Can you tell us about that?
Well, we did go up into, we went up to Penobscot, Indian Island, me and her and my fiancé at the time, when I was doing this book, and one of the Penobscot friends, actually Stan Neptune, who did some of the Root Club carvings in the book, he said, come on, let's go on a canoe trip. I went and took the tents and sleeping bags and went up through the islands and got to this one area, and then he took us out to another island where there was stone chambers and mounds and sundials. Yeah, it was amazing. So those are all part of the ancient Americas, and where there was, I think, much more contact than we have today. There's a lot of interference there's like an electromagnetic grid around this planet that they've put up, through satellites and through mapping. They've charted about every 10 feet of this planet. And so there's like an electromagnetic grid around this planet. Communication has made it difficult. Because one thing I learned is they don't like to be around the wires either. A lot of the sightings are in these really rural places, in South America, up in the mountains, in places where there's no wires, no power stations, no wires like that.
I have a question from someone in the chat room. This is from Janet L. She asked, does Nancy Redstar have any sense of what happened to the Native American civilizations that have disappeared? Did they ascend to the fifth dimension, she asked.
Well, I do have one of the first interviews in my film is with a historian for the Anasazi and the Dene Nation, and he talks about there's some symbols on the rocks down in Canyon de Chelly that we went down there and filmed, and he talks about what this particular symbol means, and he said that he draws the symbol it's in the film, he draws the symbol, two spirals with a bridge in between them, and he said this is where the Star people came down and met with the Anasazi, and that they had contact, and he showed me these, you see the old cliff dwellings. He said that's where the star maps were drawn all over the ceilings up there in those cliff dwellings, so that they could time when the visitation would occur. So I believe there was a lot more visitation in those days when things were more human. So we have to get back to that place in order for that to happen again. They're definitely not coming to save us.
Right. I agree.
That ain't going to happen. Yeah, they will help us rebuild, and they always do come back through the changing cycles of worlds.
Interesting. Molly Keating, the lady we were just talking about from your book, states that almost every tribe has legends that speak about the sky people who came down from the stars. And I know that the Hopi talk about the Kachinas as star people. Mm-hmm. But that's probably something I'd have to ask Hopi about to get more.
Yeah, I can't talk about Kachinas per se. It's, not my place, other than what's in the book from other elders, who have permission to do that. But I couldn't... the talk of the Kachina is really by an initiated person within the Hopi clans, but I encourage people to try to find that interview because they do talk about that, the two Hopi elders in the Art Bell archives on Coast to Coast. I mean, I have the tape. I recorded it, but I think it still is available. I don't think it's on YouTube either.
It's interesting, the Hopis, the Iroquois, all these different groups, they have their own bit of the story, don't they?
Well, like the word Anishinaabe, which is the Medewan people. Anishinaabe, as she says, because she was in the Medewan, she was going through the initiation of the Medewan ceremonies. Molly Keating, the Sadaqus, was, that means man who came down from the stars.
And in your book on page 30, there's this very important statement that says, many artifacts over the centuries seem to indicate that there was an extremely advanced civilization long before what we consider our recorded history. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is watch Ancient Aliens to get an inkling of that. I think that's been pretty well established. Maybe not mainstream, but certainly people who are putting the pieces of the puzzle together the monolithic structures, like in Ohio, for instance, when I was being interviewed by the History Channel, which they took the information out and used it later on in the interview without me. But one of the elders, one of the elders in my nation that was helping me with some of the questions, because you need that. Actually, this information actually came through a group of Cree elders up in Canada who were talking to me about the mound area, and it was confirmed by one of the elders in the Cherokee Nation that there was what it was called a standing columnar wave. It was actually at the Serpent Mound, and it was created through the ceremonies and the dancing. It was like tracking the powers of subatomic matter, really. It was like the secret of energy. The feathers were antennae, and the beads were transistors, and they would balance the aura and create a pulsating light with a radius of 40 miles. So that was like an electromagnetic attunement with the earth. And the column became an actual literal light column of fire. The light was of electromagnetic pulse, like a firelight. But this whole ceremony was lost during the mound period because of what happened. However, the rituals, the dancing, the drumming, and the chanting, and that still go on,
Mm-hmm.
But literally, the feathers would become antennae, and the beads would be transistors, and that was used to balance the aura, the light chakra waves. We're all light. Everything is light, in subatomic physics to subatomic human physics. And so at those centers, there was ways of utilizing that light, and that would help to cleanse and activate that grid line that the edifice was built on. Say it's a monolithic structure like the Serpent Mound. That is one of the places where they did those secret primordial DNA rituals. And that's what we're going through now. We have to activate our DNA, and everything we're being bombarded with, for instance, fluoride in the water, coagulates in the pineal gland. One of the things I do is I drink elemental gold and red clay.
Really?
I mix it. Yeah. And what happens is it takes the fluoride out of your pineal gland. I actually drink the gold and I mix it with the red clay, which is almost like an alchemical. It's almost like the two elements for Indian people is the red clay, which they use in the Sundance. They also use it in the Kiva and the Pueblo. But it has gold in it because I harvested in a cave. And when I come out of that cave, I have gold flakes all over my face.
Wow.
And so I drink that, and what it does is it cleans the blood and it takes the fluoride out of the pineal gland, because the ascension is all part of these light waves. It's the ascension is a literal ascension. It's also a light ascension within our own body, so that we can access the information we need to get to the other side of this. And everything that's being done is trying to stop that, because particularly indigenous people have more than 12 strands of DNA. Okay, they got like 22. African people and indigenous people, the original DNA was at 22 strands.
That's fascinating.
Which gives you abilities that people who have 6 strands don't have. Most of the people who are running the war machine are 6-strand DNA. I mean, you just got to look at them and you know there's something wrong. I mean,
true.
everything they do, is mimicking the ancient mysteries. Everything that they worship, in secret. The Egyptian mystery schools and Babylon and the Masons, and I mean,
amazing
yeah.
stuff.
Did you know that the first name of the Republican Party was the Red Men?
Really?
Mhm.
What was that all about?
Well, it's all about that. That's what they do. They take. It's all stored in the Vatican. All the secret ancient texts, the real knowledge is all being withheld from humanity. So we have to get it on our own, and the way we can access these archives is through our genetic coding. But if we're filling it with fluoride, then what's happening is we're not evolving. We can't evolve because fluoride kills.
Oh yeah.
Brain cells.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface tonight. I can tell you just have loads of other information there, and I want to let everyone know again that we're speaking with Nancy RedStar. Her URL is www.nancyredstar.com. Her book is called Star Ancestors, and you're working on a movie about the book as well, correct?
Oh, yeah, I'm working on Star Ancestors. Actually, I have a YouTube channel. It's just Nancy RedStar, and I have about, 167 little vignettes on there. Some of it is, I have a news site, which is just the real material world, but I also have quite a few clips from the films. So if anybody wants to peruse over there, they can.
Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show this evening, Nancy. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I hope we get to do it again. Is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, no, not so much, but tonight we are in the season of the snow moon, and tomorrow we will be in the season of the cold moon. So I guess we're in winter.
Indeed. Well, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you, Nancy, and
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and let's do this again. And you have a happy New Year, and that goes out to everyone tonight. I want to thank everyone in the chat room: Barbara DeLong, Curious Listener, Dale Ray 19, Eva Long. We've got about 10 anonymous guests in. Pemic 12, Janet L. Jeff 72, RD 47, Shaken. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas as well. Have a Happy New Year. Thanks a bunch, Nancy. We'll talk to you again soon.
You.
And have a good evening, ma'am.
All righty. You too.
Good night.